helping me out with the morning spot, so keeping the lectures. I will take over starting this afternoon, but let us wait for a bit until Philippe removes his coffee mug, and I also hope that Innocencio is connected because I only see Philippe and something called Angola room. So please, Philippe, if you can confirm that Innocencio is also present. Okay, we'll give those guys a couple of more minutes. Until then, are there any questions from your side, Young Joe? I've seen a widely discussion in between you and Arno this morning and during the break. Are there any other questions? If no problem, you know where to find us, okay? You can ping us over chat at any time. The exam, you mean the final exam? The final exam is a task that is going to be given to you on the final day, on Friday, when we end with the lectures. And it more or less resembles the exercises you have, but it is a bit more complex. Let's say in scope, more complex in scope than in an essence. And you will have 1 week together with all the rest of the exercises to solve it, so no problem there. Okay? But on Friday, you're going to be given the task, so you will know more details on Friday. And we're waiting still a bit more for the guys from Angola. Yes, please, you can ask questions whenever you want. Let me just reply to you in a chat. Possibly the guys from Angola will be interested. The final exam task will be presented on the once lectures finish, and you will have the complete next week to send in the result. Okay. You mean, can you still ask questions next week? Yes, of course. If you're referring to the next week, yes, you can send us questions via email and we'll reply to your questions. Okay. We'll not have, direct Zoom, connection and discussion, but you can always send us questions via email next week. If you get stuck with any of the exercises, with the final exam, whatever doubts you have, you can send us a question and we will reply as soon as possible. Please use the same email address, training exercise June. So both myself and Arno are aware of the question, and the one who sees it first will reply. Okay, no problem. A bit more time from the guys from Angola to get back from their lunch break, I expect. Okay. Okay, let us slowly start, and we'll wait. We'll hopefully the guys from Angola will join soon. So what I will do, I will review the things that you discussed since this morning with Arno. Uh, so you've discussed, and Arno told you about the storage daemon configuration or the niceties or important directives. Okay, and you've seen that configuring a storage daemon can be sometimes a bit complex, especially when you are dealing with tapes. You've discussed also about spooling a bit. Okay, again, we'll get back to spooling once more, but I expect that now you have the idea, because spooling is thing that you need to, need to take care of both sides. You need to, you first need to create an infrastructure for spooling, so there needs to be a room where you will store the data that is spooled, and then you can enable the spooling. If you don't do so, bacula will use the working directory, and that can be problematic. If the working directory overfills, it will kill your storage daemon. If it kills your storage daemon, it kills all of your jobs, etc., etc. You have inconsistencies. And then we have touched the famous storage related topic, and those are auto changers. Okay, so discuss the auto changers, the need for them, and I expect the need for an auto changer when you are using a tape library and behind is quite obvious. So you need a representation of the changer or the robotic arm that loads and unloads tapes to and from drives is quite, useful to have. But if you follow this logic, and if you follow our way of thinking, you will soon understand that we also like to see auto changes running on disk over disk devices. Why? Arnold mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it once more for the sake of a remembrance, and that is bacula can only utilize one volume at a time with a tape device. Okay, if you need, and that one volume can be utilized with multiple jobs, but only to write to. If you need to read from a volume, then only a single job can utilize that volume. And if you want to read from one volume and write to another volume, you will need at least two devices. So, in order for us to accommodate easier way to read from one volumes, write to another volumes, or to accommodate better throughput in the case of utilizing multiple volumes, so we can run more jobs in parallel, it is a good idea to have an auto changer created in front of the disk devices. And that goes also for tape devices, that goes also for cloud devices and DGIF devices. Because if you have an auto changer in front of those devices, you will be able to utilize your volumes in a much more optimal fashion. Okay? In this case, the configuration is quite simple and straightforward. And this is where, on this slide, the configuration of an auto changer that handles disk devices is shown. So what you do is you create multiple device definitions. The only thing that they have in common everything else apart from one thing, and that is the name and possibly the drive index. Okay. Every other piece of configuration is exactly the same, and then in order for you to be able to utilize them equally, in a balanced fashion and in parallel, you create an auto changer device and set and list all of those devices in a definition. This cannot be done like so. This is only a symbolic representation. You need to list device file changer device 0, then a comma, file changer device 1, comma, etc. Okay, so all of those 4 devices like these need to be listed here, and because this is not a proper robotic arm, okay, this is not a proper auto changer. We are admitting Innocencio, okay? Hello, welcome back, guys. From the break, we are discussing disk auto changers. So, this since this is not a this is not a physical robotic arm. The changer command is non-existent. You just leave it empty, and the changer device, because it needs to point to some of device, is pointing to a software dev null device. This device actually, what it will do, if you send something to this device, it will just create nothing out of it. It's a black hole device. But for the sake of a storage daemon definition, it will do. Okay? And in order to be able to utilize this auto changer and multiple disk drives behind it from a director, you need to define a storage resource with certain name, and need to have this storage resource point directly to the auto changer device, not to the specific devices, but to the auto changer resource. Okay? And also, you need to define the auto changer variable, set it to yes or to the name of the device itself. Okay? And in order for you to utilize this storage from within a job, you just need to list it in a job. What is important once more is that virtual auto changer devices, so auto changers in front of the tape device, disk devices, do not need a proper changer command or a proper device, but you just use those two values, blank and /dev/null. If you remember from this morning, an auto changer that points to a tape device needs to have a proper command, which is most prominently our MTX changer script. So it was created by Bacula, and you just point to that script, and it works. If you want to modify the behavior of the script, please do so. Or if you have your own approach, of your own program that handles auto changing, loads and unloads of tapes, you can also do that. Use that one. In this case, you have an empty string for a changer command and point to a software null device. And what can also be done here, because you will have multiple devices hidden behind the same auto changer, you can have lesser value for maximum concurrent jobs on those devices. What I propose is to use maximum concurrent jobs set to 1 on all of the devices that are not tape devices. Okay? This will allow you to only use one job per volume to write, but since you have multiple devices, you will still have a parallelism. Okay? So if you have maximum concurrent job set to 10 and you have 4 devices here, if you say maximum concurrent job 1 per device, you will be able to run 4 jobs in parallel. All the rest of the jobs until number 10 will be queued, or you will need to create more devices. I personally would suggest that you try option number 2 and add 6 more devices. Why? Because disk devices, unlike tape devices, are logical. They just reference the possibility of a file system to be used in parallel, so you can have as much as of them as you like or as you need. Okay? So this is a closure of a topic that discusses the detailed configuration of a storage daemon. Okay? Once more, we will discuss auto changers once more, and we will discuss pooling once more, but not in such many details. We will more discuss auto changers later as a means of understanding how useful they can be. There is a question from Young Joe. Let's say there are 4 devices with an auto changer. If 4 jobs run parallel, are they right on 4 devices on different volumes? If you have set maximum concurrent jobs to 1 per each of the devices, yes, then 4 devices will be running in parallel, and each of those devices will be writing to a separate volume. Bacula cannot be used in such a fashion that multiple devices write to the same volume. Okay? If you need more parallel write, you can do two things. You can either enable multiple jobs per device, which I do not suggest, or you can simply add more devices. And this is what I suggest. A consequence of this approach is that you will have more volumes in use, okay, than you initially would have conceived, but that's a good thing as long as you contain volumes to be relatively small and manageable, okay? More questions? So, Young Joe says, so the number of devices is related to the number of volumes, right? If you set maximum number of maximum concurrent jobs equals 1, I will switch back to the screen. That means that one volume can be utilized from this device at one time. If you have more than one device, then if you utilize all of those devices at the same time, yes, you will need to use multiple volumes in parallel. So the number of volumes that is currently in use by Bacula, that is currently be written to or read from, it depends on the number of devices you have. If you have only one disk device, you will be able to use only one volume to read or to write to. And this can be a choke point of your Bacula configuration. So this is why we advise to have multiple devices and an auto changer, so you can manipulate, so you can utilize multiple volumes at the same time. Okay? So if you have multiple devices, multiple volumes can be utilized at the same time using those devices. What is the important thing? All of those volumes will be located here, okay? And all of those volumes will have media type file 1. So they all need to have the same media type. Once you create a volume, media type is written into the volume header, and no device that doesn't have this media type might utilize this volume, okay? More questions? If no, then I will proceed with a slightly different topic. And this topic is about about organization around Bacula, mostly. So we are aware now that in Bacula, day-to-day operations, there are some critical things that we need to take care of. Today, in this topic, I'm going to address them and stress them for you so you are once more aware what they are and what you need to do about them, okay? Before those, we need to stress one more thing, and that is pre-production. Pre-production means all the measures that you need to take before you put Bacula into production, okay? It mostly boils down to a decent plan. So you will need, if you remember my talk from the beginning of this course about different aspects of an organization and what needs to be taken into account of in regards to backups, like time windows, like different organizational units, like different needs, different frequencies of backup, quantity of data, different time for a restore. So all of that needs to be taken into an account, and you should at least sketch a rough outline of a backup policy when you start implementing Bacula. So you need to take your time before putting Bacula into production. You have to have a policy in place, you have to have the organization in place, and then once you have installed Bacula, before you start running production backups, you need to test carefully, especially restores. What you need to do is you need to identify all the unique restore use cases and then test each and every one of those and make sure it works before you commit this type of backup and this type of restore to production. Okay? For that means, what does that mean? If you have, for example, backups of a 100 similar servers. At least back one server up and restore it, and verify that that restore works, and then you can implement 100 backups in your production. If you have backups of virtual machines, of I don't know how many virtual machines, at least back one up and restore it and make sure that restore works. And restore all the use cases that you will possibly need. That means a full restore, a single item restore, whatever you expect you will need, you need to test. Of course, during the production run of bacula, or during the exploitation of bacula, there will be new use cases popping up. There will be new requirements. And you need to follow this approach with those new things. You should always first run a test of a backup and restore for all the use cases that are new before you commit into production. What can be interesting for you here in this aspect, and that is that you possibly can create a test bacula environment. It doesn't need to be fully blown, so you cannot test the performance, but you will be able to test the functionality. You can install additional bacula director onto a virtual machine, okay? In general, with bacula enterprise, you can have only one director running. If you have multiple directors, that is breach of subscription, okay? But we do not prohibit you from having another director installed and used for testing, as long as this installation is not utilized for production backups and production restores. We do not take it into consideration for subscription. So you can have a small bacula test infrastructure for your own sake. It is good to have it so you can test new backup and restore use cases before putting them into production. Test your new file set, okay? Test the approach, test the time window, etc., etc., okay? Then, if you are introducing tapes in bacula, then please, before you commit tape library into production with bacula, first run the tape testing. Use the btape command, as Arno discussed with you previously. So in order for you to make sure that you have an optimal tape drive configuration, an optimal combination of maximum file size and maximum block size, okay? It will take a bit of time, but once you have it, please note it, and you will then be able to utilize it. And you will be utilizing this one until you get new types of drives. Tape libraries are pretty expensive thingies. So what people do mostly is they buy a tape library together, slots plus drives. Slots are the places where you place empty tapes and where tapes are placed after they have been written to. And after the time progresses, of course, new versions of tape drives are popping up. So currently we have LTO 9, but possibly you have started with LTO 7 or 6, and you will possibly want to upgrade. What you can do with the nowadays tape libraries is mostly you can buy just a new tape drive and place it instead of the old one, and then just use new tape magazines. Once you have a new tape drive, please test it before you start utilizing this drive with bacula, okay? Apart from the btape testing with speed, okay, you should at least for this also run at least one end of tape handling test by using the fill command to make certain that bacula will be able to properly detect end of tape. Unlike file volumes, tape volumes should not be contained with soft limits through pool configuration. Why? Because they have their physical limit, and that is the end of tape. Once the tape itself is near the end, the tape drive will detect the end of tape event, and it will signal to bacula. Bacula needs to be able to understand the signal and to close the volume, set it as full into the bacula catalog, okay, and stop utilizing this volume. You need to test this using the fill command, okay? Once you have done with all of the pre-production items, you are ready to push bacula into production, and you start adding new clients, you start adding new backups. Of course, you test before you add new use case, etc., etc. And after a certain period of time, there will be things that you will need to take care of for the start. Definitely, as soon as bacula starts running in production, you need to think about the disaster recovery. You need to think how to protect the most critical pieces of bacula. The most critical piece of your bacula infrastructure is the catalog, okay? You need to back it up. We have a lot of users that are using out-of-the-box bacula backup job, catalog backup job. It's okay, it's usable. You'll see later a bit through the exercises, you can use this backup and restore it even using some unorthodox methods, okay? So it's pretty reliable, okay? But you need to back it up. So you need to make sure that your catalog backup job is executing. If you are not inclined to use our bacula backup job that we predefined, you can create one of your own, or you can back up your catalog using something else. We have a group of users that run bacula catalog on their own database clusters, not on the same host as bacula director. And if that is the case, mostly those users are backing up the catalog using some other approach. That's also okay as long as you can restore it. Please, once you back up the catalog, first make sure that the backup does not reside on the same storage as the director, okay? Second, once you back up the catalog, please make sure also to back up the bootstrap file of that backup job, at least that bootstrap file. Write it and store it someplace, okay? Apart from the catalog and apart from making sure of the bootstrap file, from that backup, you should also back up your bacula configuration. Nowadays, people are backing up their bacula configuration either using bacula itself, and the same approach goes as with catalog backup. You run that job, you need to make sure it runs, okay? And you also need to write bootstrap someplace. Or people are utilizing nowadays some content management systems like Git or SVN to manage bacula configuration. We have even people that utilize Puppet or Ansible and then use Git. If this is the case, your configuration management is much more resilient, but still it needs to be backed up, okay? In regards to bacula catalog backup job, by default, you've seen that it runs with priority 11. This is set up in that way purposely because we want this job to be executed with no other job run, okay? But this might be a problem. If you have a big backup infrastructure, and this is not such a lonely case, it might well happen that your bacula backup job will not be able to run for days, weeks, even months. And that will be a problem. You should make sure that bacula catalog is backed up regularly, as much as possible. It would be ideal to back it up every day. So if something happens to bacula, you have everything up to on a day. But if you cannot do such a thing, you at least need to be sure that it can be backed up to a couple of days, a week the most. But if you cannot back up your catalog for days, for months even, because it's a priority number 11 job, then it is better even to run a backup with all the other catalog backup with all the other backups than not to run it at all. It is better to have a non-consistent backup than no backup. Okay? I will skip over this bacula rescue media because that is something that we don't do for some time. Okay? And one thing also that you need to keep in mind when you are backing up bacula configuration and using bacula configuration, keep in mind that all file names and references, all bacula configuration files need to be UTF-8 encoded. Okay? If you are using Windows, that can be. If you are using Linuxes, that should not pose such of an issue. By default, it's the case. But again, you take a look and see whether or not English US.UTF-8 is used. If you're using Windows, then it well might be the case that UTF-8 is not used. So make sure it is. Okay. What else you need to do? Of course, you need to educate yourself. This is why you're on this course. Okay, read the tutorial chapters. Nowadays, they are called on the customer portal, but you have been through that. I will show you. So yes, you can go with fundamentals, take a look at them. But that does not, I would say, this is not something really important for you because you will be and you are attending NME1, so you will possess much more knowledge than this fundamental can give you. But what also you need to do, you need to get yourself acquainted with bacula utility programs, and we will do so by the end of this course. We ship bacula out with certain number of binaries that are not to be used on your day-to-day operation, but that can help you a lot if something goes wrong. Okay, you've seen one of those binaries. It's called B-tape, and I'll discuss it. Well, he discussed setting up bacula to run with a tape. There are others. I mentioned briefly two of them. One is B-regex and the other one is B-wild, but there are also others that are pretty interesting. Oh, thank you for answering, Young Joe. Sorry for not seeing the question. Thank you, Arno. And what might be also interesting for you is to make sure that you are able to perform a bare metal recovery of the bacula system, so bacula director. This does not mean that you need to back up bacula director using our BMR plugin, but this does mean that you should be able to back up all the crucial parts of bacula so you are able to restore it with or without a bit of manual intervention. Okay? And this takes us to our exercise number 9. Let me just scroll there. And here it is. Exercise number 9 is all about restore of a catalog. So, what do we do here in this exercise? First, we perform a backup, not of a catalog, but any other backup of your bacula directory. Okay. Then we back up the catalog and take a screenshot of a successful backup job. Then we stop bacula. Okay. We stop all bacula daemons on the course VM. Okay, bacula file daemon, storage daemon, and director. For you to understand, this is the way that we suggest you shut down bacula daemons on one host. First, stop the file daemon, then the storage daemon, and the last director. Why? Because file daemon controls the jobs, the backup jobs. So if you stop that one, okay, the backup job will be canceled properly, more or less. If you first stop the file daemon, the backup job will simply crash. Okay, so this is why you stop the file daemon, then you stop the storage daemon. And the last thing you stop is the director once you're sure that every job, that no jobs are running. Okay, and also you start the daemons in the same order. First the file daemon, the storage daemon, and then at the end the director. But let's get back to the exercise at hand. So you perform a backup of your bacula configuration. Sorry. So sorry for this. So you stop the daemons after the backup of a catalog, and then you create a disaster. Together with all the other scripts we ship out with bacula installation, we have a script that is called drop bacula database. What does this script do? This script will actually remove the complete database from your database management system. It will remove the complete catalog database. Okay, once you run this script, as an output, you will see that the database was dropped. And from that on, your bacula is literally defunct. It's not functional, okay? So this is a disaster. In step number 4, you create a disaster and take a screenshot of a disaster. And then also, to drive the point home, you remove a file from /opt/bacula, okay? Or in this case, a complete directory. But you can just remove one file, any file from one of those backups, okay? And then you will literally have the state that you have bacula not functional, catalog empty, so bacula has no metadata at all, okay? And then you will need to perform a restore. What you need to do now is, first, you need to locate a backup, previous backup of the catalog. You need to restore that backup using a bacula instance that is running with an empty catalog. Okay, so there is a trick to this. We will discuss the trick, or you will read about the trick. So you need to perform a unorthodox restore. So you restore the latest bacula catalog backup, and then once you restore the backup script, the backup dump, you need to push that dump back inside of your catalog to have the catalog running in order to be able to restore the file that you have removed. Okay? So what you do now is, first, you need to recreate an empty catalog database. In exercise number 2, when you install bacula, there were steps, scripts that you need to run to create an empty bacula database. Please do them once more. Okay? Take a look at the workbook. Then you need to start bacula once more because it was down. Now bacula will start with an empty database. It will be totally stupid, okay? It will not know a thing. And then you need to use a special procedure that is described in the Admin 1 course manual. So please raise your hands if you have the Admin 1 course manual textbook. Once more, if you have, yes, thank you, Young Joe. Philippe, Inocencio, do you have your textbooks? Not now, but are they present? Okay. So what you will need to do is open the textbook and take a look at this chapter. And there are instructions on how you can execute a restore by bypassing bacula catalog and just planting a bootstrap file. Okay? For this, you will need to have a bootstrap file available of the latest catalog backup. So here, once you perform a backup, please, once you perform a catalog backup, please also save the bootstrap file, okay? So you will perform that kind of a restore. It will restore this file, bacula.sql. And then you need to run this procedure to get the catalog backup data from the backup, catalog data from the backup back into the running catalog. Okay? This is a simple procedure. You need to switch user to be a Postgres user. once you restore this file, you copy it into temp and modify its attributes so it's accessible by a Postgres user, and then you switch to be a Postgres user and then execute the PSQL command. PSQL command, when you push a script to the command or a textual file to the command, will read line by line and execute that. Okay, so this command actually says, read this file and apply this file onto this database bacula. Okay. After this is done, your catalog database will be back online, and you will prove this by performing a restore of a file that you deleted previously, and you need to take a screenshot of a successful restore. Also, you need to take a screenshot of a bacula catalog restore, an unorthodox restore, okay? And paste those screenshots to us. Please, please, please. Please, even if you do not plan to work on other exercises, this exercise should be worked on. Why? Because this might prove to be of a crucial importance to you to understand this procedure once during your backlog production. If something happens to the catalog, but you do have a catalog backup available and a bootstrap file, you can use this procedure always to recover your catalog to the latest backed up state. Okay? So this is really, really important exercise. Okay? Are there any questions? If no, I will remove the workbook. Sorry. Okay. And we will, and I will propose a break here because we are about 15 minutes to an hour, a bit more, okay? So we will continue at 3 p.m. Central European Time to discuss the next section. Next section is a discussion about auto changes, not about their configuration. We have discussed that. We have discussed the configuration of an auto changer and a device when you use tapes, when you use disk. We will discuss here some examples, simple, simplistic examples, and about how auto changes can help you. And also, we will discuss something about an example on how you can generate different pool categorization. Okay, how you can what strategy you can use to create different pools, and a bit of data spooling. Okay, so I will call for a break. We will continue at 3 p.m. today to discuss these. Okay, here it is. To discuss these examples. Okay, that is 1 hour late, 1 hour earlier for the guys from Angola, so 2 p.m. and it is some 10 p.m. for Korea. Okay, we will continue then. Until then, enjoy the break.